Hello, the internet. My name is Ben, the RC Bender, and on my channel we review, we modify, but mostly we drive. Today we're talking about the WL Toys line of RC buggies, specifically this $120 12th scale electric four-wheel drive climbing buggy, otherwise known as the 124018, otherwise known as that buggy everybody's doing speed runs with on the internet. Seriously, how hard is it to name an RC car? I call it the ankle remover. Actually, I call it the desert buggy because I'm kind of boring, but it's fast, y'all. It'll take out your ankle. So, what is it? This little rocket sits halfway between being like a buggy or a basher. And if you're new to the scene, buggies are typically designed to go really fast over a specific surface, like a carpeted track or a dirt racing track. And bashers are designed to have fun with anywhere, hit things, bounce off of things, take big jumps, get huge air, and mostly remain in one piece. This one's got a mostly scale appearance, which is something I like. That means it moderately could pass for something that exists in the real world. Most bashers tend to look like a Lexan jelly bean with cartoonishly large tires sticking out from them. The WL Toys buggy is pretty darn well equipped for something in its price range. There's a generic 540 motor in there that makes decent power. It's got an overall chassis design, which is rather smart, if not exactly revolutionary. It's four-wheel drive with open differentials, all metal gears, oil-filled shocks, not all things that you typically see on something priced this low. Now, I'll admit right off the bat, I did not really understand buggies or bashers that much before I started driving this one, and there were a couple things about it that I thought were pretty strange. I didn't understand why the suspension lets the wheels go up so far that the chassis itself can hit the ground on jumps. And some of the most vulnerable suspension components are made of plastic. I assumed that I would need to upgrade them to metal. But when I started researching how to fix these problems in the RC community, I learned that it's actually pretty smart engineering. By letting the belly pan hit the ground on jumps, the force of the impact is spread out across a stout piece of metal here, instead of shattering these little shocks. And the plastic suspension components are kind of designed to be the part that break before it transfers force inside the car into more expensive components or twists the whole chassis itself. As somebody with a bit of a mechanical engineering background, I was both kind of impressed and humbled by how this thing sorted out. So what does it do? I'm going to clue you in here for a moment on something. I don't do unboxing videos. I don't care how well the marketing department created an on-brand experience with the slick cardboard. I like to really drive it and make my opinions based on how something feels over time. This means you can probably tell by looking at the car I'm reviewing and seeing what kind of condition it's in, how much I enjoyed driving it. If it's all clean and sparkling and blemish-free, probably didn't enjoy it very much. So it's without shame that I show you the current condition of this desert racer. So how did it get these scars, you might ask? First of all, it goes fast. Stupid fast. Ricky Bobby fast. Get into some real trouble real quick fast. The box claims it'll do 37 miles an hour, and while that might be a little optimistic, seeing anything this small get up and boogie over 30 miles an hour is pretty impressive. And it doesn't just top out at a high maximum speed, it accelerates pretty quickly too. It scoots. It launches hard, it accelerates fast, and it's really stable at high speeds. I'm sure there's somewhere a $120 car that is faster on the radar gun than this thing is, but I highly doubt there's anything out there that's as stable and controllable when going stupid miles an hour. And it's not just me that's impressed by this buggy's speed capabilities. There's a massive community out there dedicating themselves to doing speed runs with this cars. Just like the old-timey hot rodders, they're gonna, gut everything in here and replace it with different components. But once they do, this platform really works well. I've seen videos of these going over 100 miles an hour, and that's just insane. So if you start driving one of these and enjoying it and think, gosh, it would just be that much more interesting if I could pass cars on the highway with it, there's plenty of people on the internet that can show you how to do that. Off the pavement, it is crazy fun to drive this thing on reasonably flat off-road ground. With this ground clearance, it can be a bit of a handful trying to drive over particularly bumpy or rocky terrain, and it's really not at home in, say, like a wooded trail. But if you can find someplace with packed dirt or graded pea gravel, this thing is amazing. It's got enough torque to break the wheels loose at any moment with a little stab of throttle, and it's just a joy watching this thing fire through the terrain and shoot dirt and rocks and debris out the back of it like a rocket engine. But the most fun I had with this was at a BMX park. There's a local group with some bashers that meets every other Sunday at a park and has a bash. And I felt a little silly bringing kind of a cheap, kind of toyish car. But the first time this flew off the top of a jump, it was clear that it belongs at a place like this. This thing charged up ramps, accelerated like a madman, would sail through the air and land from 10-foot jumps somehow without shattering into a million pieces. If you could shrink yourself to 1/12 scale and put yourself in the little cockpit and drive around, you would be squished like a bug with the G-forces this thing can achieve through jumping, turning, crashing. It's a real ripper. So, who is this for? This is a great car for anybody who wants to go really fast on a budget. If you have the need for speed and you're just itching to vault an RC car up onto the roof of your house, this is an easy car to do it with. A few notes though, I would not recommend this car for somebody with attention or impulse control issues. While this car is pretty tough and manageable, it does go fast enough that a fraction of a second of misattention can make everything go wrong. Now, there is a dial on the controller that allows you to dial the throttle back, which means you can crank this thing down to like 50% power and be reasonably assured that you're not going to launch into a curb immediately. I'd also recommend that the person who buy this have a reasonable place to drive it. This thing rips, it's super fun, but the street outside your house with curbs and sidewalks is probably not the right place to run it. And you're gonna be tempted to run it. Just about every time I got into trouble with this car, it's because I just wanted to test something quick and took it out front of the house and would clip a curb or a solid object. And curbs are not kind to small little RC cars. Speaking of interacting with curbs, if you're going to drive something this fast, you should probably budget for repairs. It is kind of expected. If you drive your car with vigor, you're probably going to break something eventually and need to have to fix it, like an Alfa Romeo. Now, the parts for this thing are pretty darn cheap, but if you only have $120 to spend on a car for the whole year, maybe you should get something smaller, slower, and stouter. Over the course of testing this, I had to replace these plastic C-hubs after an encounter with a curb. I bent a drive shaft and had to replace it, but I got a package of 4, so now I have spares. And I've wiped nearly all the tread off of these tires. But the suspension parts were about $8, the set of replacement drive shafts was about $12, and the new aggressive dirt tires I got for it were about $9 for the tires and wheels together. And while these are pretty darn cheap prices, I did have to have most of these shipped and there was a decent wait time for them, so that's something you need to be prepared for. So, is it good? It's good. People, this is so good. Driving this is just one of those visceral experiences that make me cackle. It's just such a joy to rip around, to drive, to drift, to slide, to jump this thing. And everybody I show it to, when they see it take off that first time, and their reaction is always, whoa. I even brought it to a crawler meetup, which is exactly the wrong place for this kind of a vehicle. But it kind of held up in terms of fun. In fact, there was a single dirt hill that was proving to be a bit of a challenge for the crawler, and this thing scooted right up it on the first try. This thing is super fun and capable. I'm always on the lookout for another place to drive it. And this might just be me, but I think it looks so cool in slow motion footage. The way this thing hops and skips over the ground and shoots stuff all over the place. It's so fun trying to get good footage of a car like this. And I say try because it's really fast. With how quick and nimble this thing is, it's really hard to track with a camera. I hacked up this rig to make the job a little easier, but this car moves fast. Bit of a warning though, this car does not like sand. I took it to a beach, thought it'd be wonderful to get some jumping dune slow motion shots. Ran for about 30 seconds before sand got in the gears of the motor and the whole thing just stopped. Now, it wasn't anything I could fix by just brushing and shaking it out when I got home, but just be aware. So, is it worth it? Come on, there's no point in building up the fake drama. It is absolutely worth it to get this kind of visceral pleasure for this price. Any way you slice it, this car is an enormous amount of car for the money. So there you have it. If you like the idea of these cars, buy one with confidence. But until you're confident in your abilities and the terrain you're in, drive it with restraint, because it's got enough fun to get you into trouble. But once you get the hang of it, watch out. This thing is so fun and puts a smile on so many people's faces that don't be surprised if a minivan challenges you to a drag race. So thank you for watching. Leave a comment if you've got something to say. I'm pretty good about reading and responding to those. And now enjoy some of the drive footage that I collected over the course of this review. Thanks, bye!